Welcome. We'll get started shortly. Before we begin, here's how to earn continuing professional education credit for attending this session. There are no polling questions or attendance checks. Instead, you will demonstrate your knowledge by taking a brief multiple-choice quiz using the Earmark app. Visit earmark.app in your web browser. You can also download the mobile app by scanning the QR code on the screen. Log in, or if you're new, create your free account. Be sure to use a valid email address because that's where we'll send your course completion certificates. From the home screen, scroll down to find the course. You can also tap the magnifying glass icon to search for the course. Tap on the course artwork, then the Enroll button. On the Course tab, you'll find the recording and quiz questions. Complete the quiz to earn your CPE certificate. It takes us a few days to create the course on the app, so if you are attending this session live, please wait a few days. We'll email you a link to the course when it is ready. If you have questions or need help, email us at support@earmarkcpe.com. And now, on to the event. Buckle up, accountants. It's time for another Earmark Expo where we're taking the latest accounting tech for a test drive. I'm Blake Oliver, joined by David Leary. Here's how this works. We're going to floor it with a live demo of a game-changing app. David and I are in the driver's seat, putting this app through its paces and asking the tough questions every accountant wants to know the answers to. And guess what? You're along for the ride with us. We want you, our live audience, to help us navigate. Ask your questions in the chat, and we'll highlight them for Luke to answer. This is your chance to see cutting-edge accounting tech in action, get your questions answered in real time, and gain insights that could transform your practice. So, take a seat, and let's roll with today's Earmark Expo.
So Blake, when you had your own firm, did clients ever ask you, is my service taxable? Is this product I'm selling taxable? Did you ever get that question?
Oh yeah, all the time.
And you're a smart guy, but I don't think you have everything memorized. How did you answer that question? What kind of research did you have to do?
Well, I'm a CPA, but sales tax is not something we ever learned in school. So what did I do? I did what any good accountant does when the client asks a question, I don't know the answer, I would Google it.
Just Google it and then go to a bunch of state websites and try to navigate this on your own.
Google's great for some things, but when it comes to figuring out the taxability of products, it's lacking. It is very difficult. And as anyone who has worked with sales tax questions knows, the answers are different by state, by local jurisdiction. It's a giant mess. So yeah, the searching the whole internet is not the answer. It wasn't for me. And so some stuff was easy. I could figure that out. I knew that pretty well, especially if it was in California where I was located, in LA, I could figure that out. But like beyond that, I often had to refer my clients to a specialist, somebody who did that, and I wasn't able to help them. So I'm really eager today to learn about Avalara Tax Research because I understand that could have helped me when I got those questions.
Yeah, I mean, you have Avalara here, this company that does nothing but eat and breathe tax and sales tax. And now they obviously have probably internal research, and it sounds like all their internal skills and their internal research is being externalized for accountants to use with their clients. And that's what today's Expo is about.
And I'm so excited to have Luke here to tell us all about it. Tax Research for Accountants. Luke, welcome.
Hey, Blake. Hey, David. How are you guys doing? Excited to be here.
Really good. Yeah, great to have you. So let's talk about this. Did David and I set that up right? Is that what your solution is out to help with?
Yeah, absolutely. So really high level, Avalara Tax Research takes all that sales and use tax law, puts it all together, puts it in plain language, makes it easy to find information. I'm going to show a demo here in a little bit, and we'll show off how it does that. But yeah, I mean, it helps everybody get the right tax answer, and in a lot of ways makes it really easy. So yeah.
Okay, great. Well, should we dig into it, or
yeah, let's do it.
I guess before you do that, I'm curious to know, like, what's the approach you take? Where do you get all of this information, right? What sources are we pulling from here, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so we employ a gigantic team of researchers that spend all day, every day going to find information. So we've got a process where we're scrubbing, I think it's over like 27,000 web pages every single day. Now, it's not just some poor intern in the basement clicking on web pages, right? They have web crawlers and all this kind of cool technology that they use. but it's all being, aggregated. And then, real researchers, human beings are looking at this stuff, making sure it's right, making sure we can put it in plain language. And as we show the demo, it'll become really apparent really quickly how we do that, or what the result is, I should say. But yeah, I mean, that's how we're doing it. We're going and checking and double checking and tracking laws, and it's all the way down to like case and local law too. So it's not just the statute, it's everything. All of that source material that you're used to going and searching for and having to find and then translate. We've done all that, and then we translate it all. So it's pretty sweet, pretty cool tool.
So basically, you're adding a research team to your firm.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good call out, David. So where you sometimes it's not that you don't have the skills, right? You just don't have the time. You're handling a bunch of clients and you need some help. You need somebody to go find an answer for you. We can do that, right? That's part of what we do.
So when you say web pages, you're actually like watching the legislation that's going through different state legislatures, the local taxing authorities, that sort of thing. You're just monitoring all that all the time.
Yep, that's what we're doing. And then on top of it, we're picking up the phone. When we know something's going on, we've got, from one source of information, we see, hey, there's a change coming. So we expect in, I don't know, some parish in Louisiana, we expect something to come out. When it doesn't come out, we pick up the phone and we go chase it down, right? I remember not too long ago, maybe year and a half, I guess time's all relative, right? But we were trying to answer a question for a rate for a customer. And my buddy Sterling in the rates department picked up the phone, was on the phone for like 2.5 hours with Jackson, Wyoming, or the county of Jackson, Wyoming, whatever that county is. So yeah, I mean, that's the kind of the depth that we're going to make sure we get the right answer for our clients and our customers.
Got it. Well, eager to dig into this with you. Can't wait to see the product.
Yeah, cool. Let me start showing off then. I'll show a couple of slides. I'll give an introduction to myself, kind of for those that are watching us, and then we'll kind of get right into it.
Great. All right, I'm going to add you to the stage here.
Great.
There we go.
All right, so today we'll be talking about Avalara Tax Research. I'm going to do a demonstration. My name is Luke. This is a little bit about me. I was in the Navy. I worked at AT&T for a handful of years. I now work for Avalara, who bought a company called TTR. That may be a name that some of you recognize. About 4.5 years ago, we were bought by Avalara. And so now Avalara Tax Research is what TTR was. I've got 3 kids. I love to fish. I love to be outside. But of course, I do have to come to work, so there's that. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. So, all right. So what do businesses do with all this sales and use tax stuff? So your clients, our accounting partners, your clients, what are they having to deal with? So they're having to research and determine the taxability of their products and services based on each individual state's laws, which, as I'm sure you all know, and any of you that have dealt with even a little bit of sales and use tax, know that each state can have a totally different set of laws and different definitions and different rules. So that's step one. They've got to research that stuff, and they probably don't understand it really well, right? The next thing is they got to respond to challenges for their customers. So they get tax on that invoice. They say, you know what, we've determined that this thing is XYZ, and we're going to sell it, and it's taxable in this state, so I'm going to put tax on it. Well, what if they get the tax wrong? What if their customer, which happens a lot, doesn't understand it themselves? And so they're going to come back and say, well, I don't think this is taxable. My competitors don't pay tax. I'm sure you've all heard that before, right? My competitors don't do it. Why should I? So people don't understand. And so responding to these challenges from their customers, dealing with their vendors, and honestly, even internally educating and supporting their own teams, all of these things are challenges that they've got to deal with. Sorry. And so those internal stakeholders can often be the biggest thorns in everybody's side, because again, somebody's been there for 30 years and, well, we never charged tax before, or whatever the case is, right? And so from the tax, accounting, whichever function is dealing with sales tax, they've got to go explain to everybody else in the company why we have to get it right, why we have to do these things. All of these things Avalara Tax Research helps with, and you, the accounting partners, by using Avalara Tax Research, can make it easier for your clients as well. So I'm going to do an ATR demo here. Before I dive in, were there any more, first kind of high level questions? Cool.
No, I can't wait to see this.
All right.
So I guess my question is like,
yeah.
and I'm sure we'll see this in the demo, but like how much of this is I go in and do a search and I can find the information myself, and then how much of it is, well, I can't figure it out. Can I ask a question and somebody gets back to me? Like, what's the human component versus the self-service kind of component is kind of where I'm going first with this.
Yeah, no, that's a good call, Blake. And just like with all things sales tax, the answer is it depends. So depending on what exactly you're looking for, depending on honestly how familiar you are with the tool, right? Those folks that have used it a lot. I mean, I hardly ever use the search because I know where a lot of stuff is already. I demonstrate this to different companies across every industry every day. So, I've got a good grasp of the whole area, obviously. But for those who are new to using it, they might use the search a little bit more. But then once you get into it, it's pretty easy to get to that point where I'm going to ask a question about something, or I need additional support on something. So, and I'll kind of start there. The additional support that comes with Avalara Tax Research. So this repository of information is great, right? Like I said, we've got all the source material. When we get in here to tax answers, which is kind of where we'll spend the bulk of our time demonstrating, you're going to see yes, no tax answers. Is something taxable? Yes or no, straight away. But then the support that comes with that is that team of research experts I told you about that you've got access to. You can just ask them a question. They're going to get right back to you. There's also a team of trainers that will make sure that you get the most out of this tool, right? So they'll obviously show you how to log in, how to, set up favorites and alerts and all that great stuff. But the other thing that they'll do is just make sure you get the tool, you understand how to use it. Like, where do things sit? How can I get the most out of each section of this tool? This is a full service piece of the Avalara solution, right? So we are here to really make sure everybody gets taken care of, all right? So as you can see here with my screen, this is Avalara Tax Research. Super high level, I think I mentioned. We're taking all that sales and use tax law and we're simplifying it. It's all going to be in plain language. It's going to be organized pretty logically, typically easy to find information. If you need a little help doing that, right, there's always the search. And there's a few ways.
So this is the app itself that we're looking at. This is not just like your browser default homepage or whatever. This is this is it, right? This is my login. I've super clean experience. I didn't even know you were in an app. That's how clean this looks. Okay.
Yeah. So this is, and it's a web page, right? So app web page. Yeah. So it is an online information service, right? So you don't have to have an Avalara login necessarily. This is technically a standalone system, right? Now we've got a lot of connection with the other Avalara products and services, right? And I'll show you a few of these things that actually can help you serve your customers better, your clients better rather, that are using Avalara as well. But yeah, this is it. It looks, they did a big redesign on it about 5-6 years ago, and made it's super user friendly, looks nice. You can customize your background. That's fun. It talks to you, so it knows that we're looking at it, as you can see by the greeting that I got on there this morning. So, all right, so let's take a look. We'll start, like I said, in tax answers, and I just want to show kind of the broad content that we've got, right? You can see all of these different industries that we cover. We do, construction, manufacturing, software, automotive, like all of those things that are real sticky. I mean, we do the retail stuff that's sort of easy in some sense, right? It's tangible personal property. It's generally taxable everywhere. We've got that stuff, and then there's other industries where there's a ton of nuance. Software, because they have software and they have services and they have support and they have implementation, right? When we may know as folks who deal with tax and sales tax, that these things are really complicated and states have different definitions on them. A lot of the times our clients, our customers don't have any idea. They go, I talked to somebody the other day, they said, hey, we're in services, nothing is taxable. That was not a super comfortable conversation to have with him, to show him actually in about half the states you're doing business, your services are taxable, right? So that can be a little bit scary for them, but we just want to give them all that information, or arm you, our accounting partners, with the information so that you can take care of your clients. So getting a little sidetracked there, but you can see kind of the breadth of content that we've got there. I always like to start at the taxes and doing business library. And the reason is because sales tax is one of those things where it really helps to have a good base, get your feet set and just understand how sales tax works. And that's what this upper section, this taxes and doing business section is all about, right? I like to call this the sales tax handbook. It's anything and everything you need to know about how sales tax works, from generally simple stuff like what a state calls their sales tax. Down in Arizona, where David and Blake are, they call it the TPT, the transaction privilege tax. Next door in New Mexico, they call it the gross receipts tax. Hawaii calls it the general excise tax. Right? I don't know why they don't just call it sales tax. Illinois, by the way, has got like 4 names for it. So
because
right?
It's a privilege to be here in Arizona. That's why.
You agree to disagree, maybe in the winter, but anyways, but the states do call them different things, and that can trip our clients up. It can trip our customers up because, again, they just don't know. So when they don't know something and a notice shows up on their door, they get freaked out a little bit. And who do they call? They call their accounting partners. They call Avalara, right, to help them take care of it. So anyways, that information, that content is in here. Obviously, the other one that's really big and on a lot of people's minds still is Nexus. And this is where I'm going to start showing off some of the features, right? And we'll go up here, Washington. Washington's a pretty good example. They've got a lot of stuff around Nexus. But you can see we've got 58 individual answers on Nexus, right? And we're looking at things like the amnesty programs, just general Nexus, which I'm going to show you one really cool item that kind of covers it all. But I mean, affiliate, trailing, special rules, all the economic Nexus stuff. What's the threshold? Is there a transaction threshold on top of the revenue or the economic threshold? What about marketplaces? We've got a bunch of information in there for the marketplace sellers and the facilitators. So as I scroll down here, this one right here, this state Nexus questions. So what we did here is we took all of the requirements for Nexus in every single state and turned them into yes/no questions. So instead of reading through the law, trying to figure out what they mean, which, by the way, in Washington, you can see there, you'd have to read through 5 totally different parts of the revenue code, right? So, or 5 different sections of the revenue code. You got to figure all that out. Then you got to translate it out of legalese, and which may or may not be your strong suit, right? And then you have to determine if those things, if your client, if they match or meet those thresholds. So we just turn them into yes/no questions. So all you need to do is simply walk down this list and answer yes or no to the questions. As soon as you answer yes, you've got Nexus in that, or your client's got Nexus in that state. They should think about getting registered and collecting and remitting sales tax where appropriate, right? So it's probably one of the best ways that we show in this tool how we make a complicated and complex project as simple as we possibly can.
Yeah, because I think if you have these questions, now you can go back to your client. You could just ask the client these exact questions, and the client's going to be capable of answering these questions. Yes or no?
Exactly. And we've got accounting partners today that use this to essentially do Nexus studies for their customer or their client. And how do they do that? Well, what they do is they hit this compare button right here. And when you hit that compare button, it takes this individual answer and applies it to every state in the country. So I don't need to go and David, like you were talking about, asking Blake what he had to do. You had to Google, go to state websites, navigate through that state's website, again, navigate through the revenue code, right? Think of all those steps that you're having to take. And none of them, I won't say none of them, some states have pretty good websites. Some states don't. Some states, it'll take you as much time to find the answer as it will to do anything else in your day, right? So we've done away with all that. You hit the compare button. I literally have my answer in every single state in the country. Okay. So, and you can see it says 52 up there. This includes the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico as well, right? So there's a lot of content and information here. So then potentially what you can do is you hit this export button. You've now dumped it into Excel and started yourself a workbook for a Nexus study that you can do with your clients and take care of them, right? That's one of those like very real examples of how does this tool, how does this platform help me do my job? And that's one way, right?
Whenever David and I see an Excel export option, we allocate extra bonus points. So well done, clearly designed by accountants. Thank you.
We've got export buttons all over the place. I'll take all the bonus points. All right. So, okay. So a couple other features to show off here, and then we'll go dig into some content. I'll do kind of assume we had a software, customer as our client, so you can kind of see the depth we get into in software. So what I can do though, before I do that, is one of the things is we talked about sharing information. So one, for taxability, obviously sharing with our customers, dealing with our vendors, maybe even an auditor, honestly. But Nexus is probably an internal thing. This is one of those great opportunities when the accounting team goes to their leadership and says, hey, we've got Nexus here. And leadership looks at them like a deer in the headlights. They don't know what Nexus is. They're not in accounting. They can share this information very plainly with them. Hey, here's what this means. It means we have a connection to this state, and here's all the triggers in this particular state. So it's a great way to share information, again, internally to educate and support folks, but again, also externally to deal with customers who want to argue about tax or vendors who can't seem to get it right on their vendor invoices. So just a great way to share information, get folks on the same page. So we track all of this stuff, right? I mentioned, I think right at the top, we're scrubbing over 27,000 web pages a day. What does that mean? Well, it means that we populate these cool research timelines right here in the tool. So you can see clearly what's changed, when it changed, what the significance or the severity of the change was. This happens to be a clarification. So for Nexus, the Wayfair ruling, of course. So you'll see that pretty much on all the Nexus items. But on taxability items, you'll see that stuff as well. And so you can even click on that. I clicked on that. I can read the change note if I want. If I go back further, it'll even change. Well, this one didn't, but the legal authority, if the legal authority changes, it'll actually change the legal authority as well. So you can see all that stuff. It's shareable, right? I can email that out and share it. So it's pretty slick.
And I imagine the history like this is not captured anywhere on the internet. States just update their website. They never show you the old website. Like you're taking snapshots along the way at these milestones.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, that's great because, if I did this research a year ago or 2 years ago and I relied upon something, I can go and find out what it was at the time.
Why did I do that? What was I thinking? Yeah.
Yeah. As opposed to going back and now it's different and I don't remember.
And so you can see there, so I turned on my highlight changes, essentially my history overlay. And so you can see those color hits as you're doing research, right? Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Maine.
No, I see, over on the left side.
But I also want to show you our update emails. So every subscriber can set up their updates, and I'll pull these over here. And so this is my update from, looks like Wednesday, a couple of weeks ago. And you can actually see the updates in here. This will hit your inbox daily, weekly, or monthly, however you'd like to set it up. You can customize the content you care about. You can customize the states you care about, right? You don't have to get everything everywhere every day like I do, but you can if you want. And as I scroll through here, you can see kind of this table of contents view, and then you get down to the actual changes, right? You can actually see the decision changes right there in your inbox.
So I'm subscribing to a state or I'm subscribing to an industry, and you're tracking those changes that might affect those clients I have. And then
that's correct.
And then I get an email daily, or do I get an email just when changes occur?
So you'll get a daily email, and if no changes occur, like I think yesterday I had my email said 0 changes, right? We didn't have any changes over the weekends. So you'll still get the email. It'll just say no changes.
So how, just as a perspective for everybody, how often would this email have changes in it? Is this constant, every week, every day, every month?
Yeah, because I get all the stuff everywhere, every day, right? I all the things. I would say 90%, 85 to 90% of the time I see changes. Sometimes it's only 1 or 2. Sometimes at the beginning of the year, there's hundreds of changes or even thousands of changes, right? And so because a state may pass a law, I'll use the software example. This is also a good kind of call out on why definitions are so important in sales tax. So the state of Kentucky defines SaaS as a service, right? So some states define SaaS as a service, other states define it as essentially a piece of software. In the state of Kentucky, they changed their law at the beginning of, I think, 2023, and they changed a bunch of services laws. Photography is now taxable in Kentucky, right? And a handful of others. Because of that service law change, SaaS is now taxable in Kentucky as well, right? And so that kind of a change where you get this really kind of big ripple effect because they simply changed the law on services. You can see that, and you'll see it. So an update like that, you might get a whole bunch of stuff on an update like that.
Now,
And when
Luke, would you mind
Good.
scrolling up for a moment to this top of this email?
Yeah.
Yeah, all the way to the top there. Yeah, so that joke of the day, can I customize that for dad jokes specifically?
Trust
joke
me,
of the
Blake,
day.
that was actually my next call out. It's really my favorite selling point of the entire tool. The fact that every day will get you a really bad joke. It's honestly, it's probably about 45 days worth of material. So, you
Well,
know,
that's okay, because that's basically how dad jokes work, right? You have
exactly.
a handful that you go through over and over again, so it's appropriate.
Exactly. It's actually how I get people at Avalara to come to training. It's gotten so bad that my daughter got me a dad joke book for Father's Day. And one of the sales reps at Avalara actually sent me a stack of dad joke cards. So I've got a stack of dad joke cards over here in a rubber band that
Populate this forever.
Do you have a collection of sales tax jokes? I think
I
that.
do, I don't. I think most of them are just your traditional
Okay.
regular
Well,
old
I think
dad.
that's an opportunity for you, Luke.
I agree with you, Blake. I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah.
We'll do a collection together.
And Luke, am I just getting codified tax code changes, updates, or what about if things are maybe their bill is introduced or it's pending changes? Do I get notified of those types of things too? Do you guys
So
track
yeah,
that?
that's actually one thing that we don't do. I would love it if we had some sort of blog. I mean, Avalara does have a blog, and so you will see if you could probably find it on the internet if you're not already getting it or you're not already plugged into it. We do have blogs and things where we release information, more industry general information. But the Avalara Tax Research service itself doesn't do that. What we do is when we know that law is going to change, we're essentially preloading all those changes. Right. So essentially in the back end of the system, we're getting all that stuff ready so that on the first, when that law goes into effect, we're going to change it so that it's a real-time change. And then there's, when I think about the way we do updates and whatnot, there's ad hoc stuff. A private letter ruling might come out. A case might finally go through the estate's court system or whatever and come out. When those things happen, if we're not aware of them, if they weren't public, which private letter rulings, of course, are not usually public until they're issued. We're then going to go check that, figure out what it adjusts, and make those adjustments, right? So I like to say it's near real time, right? Because we have to go do our due diligence. We have to go make sure that every item that a certain statute may be affected by gets the proper treatment. So it's a really detailed and robust review process that, again, humans got to go do. We have to go put our researchers on it to make sure we get our clients and customers the right information. Because that's ultimately what it's all about, right? Getting accurate and correct information out there so that people can make good decisions for their business. All right. So the last thing, speaking of really smart people and that team of researchers, we've got that contact a tax expert function. So where you run into something that it's your client's just got too many weird conditions on a sale, or it's something that they've never sold before and they don't understand. Or again, you just don't have the time. You're handling too many clients. You don't have the time to go spend a couple hours researching something. Put your question in here and send it into the team. That team are mostly attorneys, and every one of them is a trained and expert researcher. That's their job, is to research stuff. They'll go find the answer. When they find that answer, they're going to get it back to you in 24 to 48 hours. It'll be in plain language. It'll include the legal citations. They're going to show their work. And that's how we get you all that information really quickly, right? If I think about this service, I did an analysis of last year's service. I think we answered about 80, I think we were at 8,900 questions last year. 94% of the time, we beat our 24-hour mark. And 71% of the time, we actually beat the hour mark. So it is a very fast, very responsive service, right? So again, I know you all, you accountants watching this, you have a ton of stuff to do. And sometimes those, the time it takes to get an answer back to a client, maybe a few days or even a week. If we can help you shorten that time and provide that just a little bit higher level of customer and client service, right? I think that's a win. So, and that's
this
how
is
we
really
help.
smart, I think, on both sides. I think it's smart for clients who can't find this additional piece of information. You can provide it to them, but smart on the Avalara side, because now you just spent some time doing some research to answer this custom question that you can now populate that research back in your database for other people in the future. It's really it's a double win on both sides.
Yeah, and sometimes some of those green confirmations that you see are often a result of us doing research on a question somebody asked. Somebody asked us, we went and looked again, we verified that our information was correct, we were able to confirm something off of it. Yeah, absolutely. It's a good call out, David. So those that Q&A service, though, if I go back to my homepage here and look at my favorites again, that Q&A service is right here, this tax expert Q&A. The repository of everything we've ever asked and answered is right here and available as a resource. Right? This is something that you can use to go get a starting point on something. You can search a term in here, right? A big one that's going on right now, of course, is tariffs.
So these are all questions from all users, not just my questions. And that's amazing.
Correct. Yep. And so now we genericize the questions, right? There's an option when you ask a question, if you need to make it private and not share it publicly, like we can do all that, right? So there's a button to mark there. But what you can do also is, again, something like tariffs, which I assume a lot of you are getting tariff questions right now. You can search on it. And what do you know? Now, tariffs are not sales tax, right? They're not something that is really run at the state level. But a lot of companies are making decisions to put surcharges on, to understand if the tariff is part of the selling price, right? And all that kind of stuff. So we're answering those questions. We're doing our best to answer those questions the way we can. So you'll see somebody asked this question right here, and this one was just a few days ago, and this is the way we answered it. Now, one of the things about having this resource, if I scroll down, we'll get some old stuff. And so I want to show you, right? So let's say that this was the answer this was what I was looking for, but you see it's back from 2021, right? So we all know laws change. I mean, honestly, laws could change tomorrow that could affect something. But what can I do? I can hit this clarification button right here. I can then ask another question on top of this question. Hey, is this still valid in this state? I've got this question, but from this perspective, is that still valid in the state, right? That clarification button exists so you can ask those follow-on questions. Okay.
And then your team will go research it and then update and clarify, provide guidance on that.
That's correct.
That answer and or this.
It'll just be an answer just like this, except it'll be right at the top with a current date. That's right. Yep. So that's a great resource. But let me point out one other thing that I think is great for accountants. Well, and let me high level a couple things first. The first is tax rates. So if you've got to help your clients with tax rates, we've got all the rates. We keep them up to date on a monthly basis. We've even got a rooftop tax rate lookup where you can look up the exact rate of a sales or use tax rate. And so I'll show you that really, really quick. And this is very similar to what Avalara's automation software does. So Avatax, if you're familiar with it. Avatax, of course, calculates, pulls in exemptions and special, it does all the really cool magic stuff. This is just a simple rate lookup, just a simple rate lookup, but it is at the rooftop level, right? I can get an exact rate at an exact location, and I can see the breakdown of that rate. So if you're doing your returns for your clients, right? In California, you need to know the breakdown of the rate. You can't just put the total rate on there. You need to understand the pieces that go to San Diego County, right? So that kind of information is in there. And again, so use tax is there as well. And I can even flip over to my map and visually see this, right? I can see exactly where that address is. I can see the taxing jurisdictions. If I zoom out, these are the shape files that we've created that we put on this map. So when you drop your pin on the map, what's happening in the background is we're grabbing all the shape files that thing touches, and that's how we're calculating that exact rate. So for general sales and use, and then we have specialty lookups for fuel, automotive, and food, prepared food, food to go, liquor, wine, and beer. So we've got some additional lookups and some API functionality as well. So that's another part of that. Any questions about this rate stuff, fellas?
No, the interactive maps is interesting. You obviously right now you're on San Diego, and the Nexus line goes out into the ocean a little bit. And I wonder, is that really truly applicable? Is that where the line is, or is it actually the coast?
Yeah, that's the county line, and that's the shape file. That may be, I don't know. I mean, when I lived in San Diego, we went on cruises out in the
Yeah.
bay. So, if you're far enough out, then there's no sales tax because you're in
Yeah.
international waters. But
When I lived in Florida, there were like cruises specifically designed so that you
yep,
didn't have to pay tax if you went off
yeah,
far
yeah,
enough.
go far enough offshore. Now, how that cruise line would have to pay use tax on supply, I don't know. I don't know. But
We could research it. We could figure it out.
but it'd be in the research, and at the
Yeah,
worst case, you could always ask somebody, right? So
that's
yeah.
right.
So that's how we're helping there. You can search coordinates as well, right? If you're dealing with companies, your clients are a construction company or an oil field services company or whatever, they're going to have latitude, longitude to get to the right information. So yeah, just a cool thing to show off there. But what I really want to get to is tax matrix. And the reason is this is something that you can potentially use to create a work product that you can get to your clients, right? So number one, you can see all of the content that we've covered. It's all preloaded matrices essentially. And so let's go talk about technology a little bit because I said we would. So here's the technology library. You can see all the areas we cover. Again, really, really thorough, really robust. Hardware, software property tax, mandatory maintenance, custom or optional maintenance. If it's customer canned software, right? Like we've got all of those things. Digital goods is a big one these days, right? So we do have a library for digital goods. And then cloud computing, of course, is big as well. And actually, this is cool. This is a good call out. You can see, because I have my highlight changes turned on, you can actually see the overlay where things have changed, where stuff has happened, right? And so if we're going to go into Texas here, and since my overlay's on and I can see up top, I can see the changes. So one row is a change, and this is a little big. So let's see if I can. I'm going to pull out the citations here because that should shrink everything. So when you're doing this, you can pull in the citations, background information. There's a lot of stuff. And honestly, one of the cool things is you can even pull in the Avalara tax code for Avatax. So if you're an implementation provider for Avalara, if your customers are on Avatax or your clients are on Avatax, you can actually help them make some good decisions by using this. And you can see clearly where we're able to make a recommendation between the research tool and the Avatax software. You can clearly see it there. All right. But what I want to just show off is kind of this easy use, right? Now I've got a tax matrix that is exportable. So there I get more bonus points for that one, right? I can export my pre-built matrix, and this is a state-by-state matrix. But the next thing that I can do, if I go back out to tax matrix, is I can actually build a multi-state, multi-product matrix. And so let's just grab a sweep of the West Coast out here. We won't choose Oregon where I'm at because we don't have any sales tax. But if I choose my items, and let's go down to technology, and let's look at cloud computing here. Grab some stuff from SaaS. So let's, custom programming services are one that companies miss a lot or customers miss a lot. Maybe some server in the States or outside. I'm just kind of grabbing some random stuff here, but I'm now going to build the matrix. And now what I get, and I'm even going to turn off this explanation as well so we can see it a little better. But now you can see right here in this column, I've got all my states, and I can scroll down to each individual state. I can figure out the category. For this exercise, let's say we're not doing an Avatax, not helping an Avatax customer, but I've got all my items right here. And then right over here, I've simply got my decision. Is it taxable or exempt? Or in some states, it would have like a reduced rate or an increased rate, right? It would actually call those out here in the matrix. So you can just very clearly see that. And again, you can shoot that export off and get it out to your client. Now, one of the things, if you provide a taxability matrix to your client, they're going to want it updated. And traditionally, that's a difficult thing, right? You've got this thing in Excel. Now you have to go do the research, recheck, double check. Well, if you save this results and name it your company, that company's name, it's just going to stay up to date. The only thing you need to do is log in and hit the export button, and you've now got an updated tax matrix for your client. Okay?
So it's a living document. So
it is a living document. Absolutely. Yep.
And so you would kind of create these client by client, and then you just always.
Yeah, you certainly could. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's
And
great because it's one thing to, like you said, it's one thing to create the study, the sales tax study
yep,
for the client, but then it's even better if you can easily update it and provide it to
yep,
them on a regular basis.
yep,
I mean, that's a
absolutely.
really valuable service.
And you put that
Yeah,
in your fees. You know, yeah, I'm going to put you on
Yep.
our tax research quarterly
Yes.
update study,
yep,
Subscription
whatever. Yeah.
pricing, subscription
Yeah.
billing. It's not
yep,
a one-time thing. That's where we all want to go with our practice.
yeah. And for the support side of things, all that feature function stuff I showed you when we were looking at Nexus exists right here in these buttons. So where it's online and they ask you a question, they say, hey, I've got a question about my custom programming services in Idaho. Here you go. Go ask the team. They'll get you that answer, and then you can ship that right back to your client, right? So it's all of the functionality exists here as well, right? It's the tool is designed to make it as easy to do all this stuff as possible. All right.
Love it.
So a couple other things to kind of show off here, and then we'll just maybe hit a couple additional questions. Here's the tax laws. This is the entire repository, right? That's all that source material. So if you ever need that, you can get into source material and share that as well. You know, our tax rates and right rates, that's right rates is where you're going to see those specialty lookups. Tax rates, we didn't get into it, but we do have rate tables that are in there as well. You can get a state by state rate table or a national export, which is a little over 70,000 rows of data. And that's zip code based. It's not zip +4, but it is zip code based. And then we also have a designator in there for inside or outside city limits. So we've got ways to help make that flat file a little bit more accurate. But of course, the most accurate way is always at a rooftop level. Explanations is for our essential subscribers. It's basically tax answers without the yes, no on it. So it's just kind of that lower subscription level on our side. Tax charts, this is pretty cool. This is a T's and E's chart, right? So I can go in here and pick a category and then grab a bunch of states. And this is a simplified version of that tax matrix, of course. But I can just pick these things and then I've got a T's and E's matrix. Now, as a user, I can even click on this and kind of dig into the legal code and stuff if I need to, right? But for your purposes, you can just, again, create a simple T's and E's, and then there's that export button. You can export this chart right out to your customer, okay? Or your client. Tax decision, that's another good one to show off. We've got some decision trees in here. So if you've got customers that are clients that are dealing with drop shipping, which I'm guessing most of you do if you deal with retail or manufacturing distribution, drop shipping is a bit of a thing. So we've got a drop shipping decision tree in here. We've got government contractors and then some software maintenance and then residential and commercial construction. And so any of those areas that you're dealing with, these are some ways to make that process a little bit simpler as opposed to maybe going in and doing some of the
Could you click on one of these?
Yeah, for sure. So the drop shipping one is good. And so we're just going to say, hey, our consumers down there in Arizona, they're shipping out of Florida. Nobody's got Nexus. The manufacturer, let's say they're in Arkansas. Let's say they don't have Nexus. And they do maintain inventory, which should trigger Nexus. And they do deliver on their own trucks. So now when we go to choose our items, we can hit a few different areas. And all of this, by the way, there is a drop shipping library. So all of this content for each state just is there and available. But if you just want to know, the most common thing that people want to know is what's the deal with the exemption documentation? Who do I need to get a cert from and all these kind of things. I can just hit view results and then it pops up a nice little matrix for me and tells me what certs for who and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's a pretty slick tool there. It does say AI. This is not AI. This is, these are just decision trees. But when TTR built these, I don't know, 7-8 years ago, right? AI wasn't quite the thing it is today. So, okay. And so, yeah, so those are kind of the general areas of the tool. And any questions on any of that? I'll talk a little bit about future state and then we'll wrap up.
I guess a question I have is, you obviously make all this exportable. Like
Yep.
you want to play nice with everybody. Everybody can download. If you want to download it every day and put it into an Excel spreadsheet, you could and just have this, right?
Yeah.
Where does this fit in with the world we live in with AI and training AI models? And is this site searchable? Can all these models get to your data? Is that a threat for things like Perplexity, et cetera? Or and I know I see in the corner you have this AI research assistant. Like, are you utilizing AI on top of this data now?
Yeah, so Avalara is making a big push to get into the AI space. It is a big part internally of what we're doing, right? And we're using AI. We've got, I think, 5 or 6 chatbots internally. We are making a push in that direction. When it comes to tax research, the important thing for us, number one, is to get it right. So, and I'm kind of a stickler for that. So our product manager here, he's all in on the AI train. He's super excited about it, which is cool. But every time he comes to me and says, hey, the AI is ready to go, I said, is it right yet? Right? Is it correct? Is it accurate? Because that's the most important thing, right? And especially as accountants, you have the interests of your clients in mind. You have to get it right for them, right? And so for us, we're obsessive about getting it right. So the way that the Avalara Tax Research AI Research Assistant, which you're able to see on my screen, the way we're building that is constantly checking and rechecking to make sure we can get it right. And so it doesn't do the same kind of generative AI. Like, it's not going to guess. You're not going to, when that finally goes live, which I believe is Q3 this year, right? We're not going to get those hallucinations because it's not going to make stuff up. It's either going to have the answer or it's not going to have the answer, right? And the thing that I think really positions us well for this is the fact that everything is organized super logically. It's consistently organized across every single state, right? One good example is like the general treatment of services, or not even that, a service that doesn't have a definition in a state. We don't make up a definition because the state's we go to the general treatment of services law. If it's not defined by the state, they're not taxing it because it follows the general treatment of services. Unless, of course, it's like in Hawaii or New Mexico or somewhere where they tax services. But that's the way that we do it. And so that consistency travels across each state. Because of that, it's got a better matrix, a better framework to go find its answers on. And so we are really, really well positioned because plain language answers that are consistent everywhere, the AI doesn't have to make anything up. It can go find the answer or not find the answer and then tell you it didn't find the answer, right? So yeah, we're pretty excited about our AI and the research assistant. So
my question has to do with, how much is this going to cost? What kind of firms are using tax research for accountants? If I'm an independent solo practitioner, can I afford this? Like, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, no, great question, Blake. And yeah, we have firms. We have, I think, all the big 4 and most of the really big firms across the country are using Avalara Tax Research. We have mom and pop shop. I mean, most of the demos that I do, because our accountant reps that handle the big firms, they're actually really well versed in ATR, so I don't have to help them as much. But most of the demos I do are for single person operations, 2 or 3 people in a firm, something like that, right? Or maybe 2 or 3 people that are doing sales tax and 5 people that are doing something else. So yes, we serve everybody. The pricing is structured in such a way that we encourage accountant partnerships. So Avalara is a partner first business, if you didn't know that. So we have partners not just in the accounting space, but also a bunch of the ERPs, the systems that all of our clients and customers use to invoice, to do their accounting, right? We plug into all that kind of stuff. So Avalara's got a program that allows you to become a partner, which then as you use our services to support your clients, we help you with pricing and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's definitely affordable. And like I said, we've sold to one person shops all the way up to the biggest shops in the world. So yeah.
What if one of my clients gets audited? Do you support that part of the process? Because it's one thing to do the research, it's another thing to deal with a sales tax audit.
Like a defense type thing.
Yeah. So Avalara doesn't do the defense. We leave that to our accounting partners, right? So one of the things about Avalara is we don't provide tax advice. We leave that advisory space, that consultancy space, to you, our partners, right? So we want you to take advantage of that business. We want you to have that consultancy business. So we don't do any of the advice. But what we do, and through Avalara Tax Research, we have what's called the Audit Information Guarantee, which means that we will back up our information under audit directly with that auditor. So Blake, David comes to you, he's your customer and he's your client rather. He comes to you and says, hey, I'm getting audited. You told me this was the taxability and the state disagrees. If you're using our information for that, you're simply going to come back to us and say, hey, here's the challenge that we're getting. We will go and defend that information with the auditor. It's not an indemnification. We're not picking up the defense, but we will absolutely say, hey, here's all of our research. Here's how we got from A to B, right? And, you know, anecdotal, but I've been here about 7.5 years between TTR and Avalara. I've never heard of us having anything overturned. Since we've been at Avalara, I'm only aware of 2 instances where anybody even asked for that support, right? And so I think, you know, we're 2,600 Avalara Tax Research customers at this point. So it is something that we do, and it's not something that, you know, we don't get overturned. The other thing to point out on that specific point, the states of Colorado, Missouri, and the Municipal League in Alaska all use Avalara Tax Research to power their public-facing websites. So if you go to the rate lookup in any of those 3 states, all of that information is provided and maintained by us. So a little bit of a commercial, but it does speak to the trusted nature of our information, right? So
I mean, so your database is so good that the states have decided to just use that
as a source of truth.
As a source of truth.
Yeah. And, you know, I got my start in sales tax doing tax recovery and reverse audits. This website was our source of truth, and that's how we would get information to auditors, right? So all that information, you know, it's a well-known name. We get refunds off of this information for our clients, you know.
So how do I get this? So I'm a small independent firm owner. I know I don't have the time, nor I don't have the skills on my team because I don't have a team to do this type of research. And I'm like, all right, I'm ready. I need to use Avalara Tax Research. What's the next steps? How do I do this?
Just reach out to our Avalara for Accountants team. I think there's actually a web link that you can go to and ask for someone to reach out to you, and they'll get you and they'll take care of you. And hopefully I'll get to meet you live on a call and I'll show you how Avalara Tax Research can work for you specifically. Or if I did such a good job, you just want to sign up, that's okay too. But yeah, no, we'll be there. We'll help you out. We'll talk through all the things that we do for accountants. Yeah, but that's the best way.
And that URL just popped up on the screen, avalara.com/accountants. Easy to remember. Yep. Just head there and you can get to whatever product you need to find. Luke, thanks so much for joining us and showing us this demo. I am just blown away at the level of detail, the options, that map, so cool. Really, really amazing what y'all have built.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I'll pass that on to the team. They're pretty proud of their work. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I love how there's 10 different ways to navigate to the same information, right?
Yeah.
I think that's not everybody's. You're not going to attack the problem the same every time with each client, but here you eventually get to the same core information. It's just different paths to get there.
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks everyone who joined us today. Stay tuned for a quick message about how you can earn continuing professional education credit for attending live or watching this on demand. David, I'll see you around soon. Luke, great to meet you. Bye, everyone.
Great to meet you, Wells. Thank you.
Today's event has ended. To earn CPE, go to earmark.app or scan the QR code on the screen. Then log in or create your free account. Search for the course by tapping on the magnifying glass icon on the home screen and then entering the name of this event. It takes a few days to make the course, so if you're attending this event live, keep an eye out for an email letting you know when the course is available. Pass the quiz to earn your CPE, then tap the button to email yourself a certificate. Stay tuned for more events from Earmark. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon.